What do you do if you're in a situation and there's a leak and you're trying to prevent water damage from getting any worse and you're trying to prevent mold? What do you do? Now, today I'm house sitting in Florida and we're doing a job that is top to bottom, floor to ceiling, and we are cleaning everything while the homeowners are out of town. And we had a little situation. All right, it started out, if you look above me, you'll see all these green plants. And they have green plants in all areas of their house, on top of all of the bookshelves, and on top of all the dressers and the bureaus and in the bathroom and all over the house. So one of the special projects that we're doing is we took them all outside and we're going to hose them down and clean them and make sure that there's no dust, because there's a lot of dust on them. We're going to make sure there's no dust on them whatsoever. When we took them outside and we went to get the hose, as we were pulling the hose, there's a little T bracket that goes underneath the kitchen sink. And one of the T's goes to the kitchen sink, the other one goes to the garden hose. When we went to pull the hose out, it snapped that water line and water started flooding inside the kitchen. So the very first thing that we did was to try to stop the leak. Oh no, where's the leak coming from and where's the water line? We didn't know because it's not our house. All right, so right outside this kitchen window is the garden hose, and water was seeping in on this vinyl floor. Now we know if it gets underneath the vinyl, it's going to go ahead and create moisture, and then that can turn into mold. So we got a problem. We've got standing water. The water is seeped out all the way across the floor to about where I am right now. So that's a lot of water on this floor. So the very first line of business is we got to turn off the water. So running outside, we came all the way out to the front of the house where we discovered, and it took us a few minutes to find it, but what we found was this was the area where the water shutoff is. So we had to shut off the water here at this outlet right here. All right, so the next thing that happened, because I didn't know where the water was coming from and I just knew the floor was flooding, the first thing I wanted to do was get up the water as quickly as possible. So I grabbed a mop and I started mopping as fast as I could, and I put the water inside the kitchen sink. Now I know that's gross, but I didn't have any mop buckets nearby. I was in a panic and I did not want the water to seep in underneath the cabinets and underneath the stove, because right on the other side of this island is a living room, and I didn't want it to get to the carpet, and I didn't want the water to seep behind the stove and the fridge and go out to the garage and all that stuff. So I cleaned up the water as quickly as possible, and it was probably about an inch thick all over this vinyl floor, which is not cool. And then once the floor was dry enough, I went ahead and I opened up the kitchen cabinet here, and I pulled everything out and I put it over here in the corner on a towel. That way it will protect the counter, but I just needed to get everything out so I could figure out what was wrong. What scared me when I opened up under the sink and I pulled everything out, I saw a few things that were under there, but there was no standing water. And I said, oh no, it's not a pipe that's broke. What is happening? So then I called a plumber, because this now is out of my scope. This is not just a broken P-trap or something that I could fix with a wrench. So I called a plumber, and lo and behold, Prime Plumbing came out. They were here within about an hour, and it was really awesome, because when they got here, they did a diagnosis and they discovered that it was in fact a broken pipe. All right, so they tried to get to it from here, and Nick, the specialist, was just fantastic. He cut this great big hole right here underneath the sink, trying to get to the pipe, and he was unable to do it. And so he had to go and cut a hole outside. So I want to stop for just a second and make a comment that when it was just a leak in the kitchen floor, I thought it was something I could handle. But the minute that the plumber came and we had to get him involved, drilling holes in the cabinets and taking off siding from the house, we had to contact the homeowner and let them know we'll pay the deductible on the homeowner's insurance. If the homeowner's insurance covers this, we'll pay for the plumber, we'll pay for the service call, all that stuff. We just are eager now to get this fixed, and we don't want to cause the homeowners worry, but now we need their permission to cut holes in their house. All right, so here's what happened. This home is about a 20-year-old home, and the siding, they don't make it anymore this way. So they had to be very careful taking it off, because it will have to be put back on, or they would have to reside the whole house. So he came down here and he was able to cut a hole. So this pipe right here is what split. And so all of that, the water that was just pushing into the house, and the other one goes to the garden hose. Now we got to have a repair person come out, because the plumber does not put siding back on houses or do the OSB board. So that had to be paid for, that had to be replaced. And now we're talking about an insurance claim. So what started out as a cleaning project to us turned into like this big homeowner issue where now we got the homeowners involved. We got a plumber coming. When the plumber gets here and he realizes that there's a much bigger problem and the pipe has busted and that water is now seeping through underneath the cabinets and the cupboards, he realizes this is not just a damp floor project. So he calls a buddy of his that's also in Florida here that is a mitigator for water damage and mold and all that stuff, brings him out. And so now it's getting later and later in the evening. So the other guy shows up within about an hour as well. It's amazing. We got the plumber here. We've got the mitigator here. The other guy is doing a water test where he's got the water meter and he's going around the sides of the rooms to find out where the water damage is. And he discovered that it had in fact seeped into the living room. It had seeped through the wall behind me, behind the stove, and it's now in the garage. And there was standing water underneath the washer and dryer. And this was all from the pipe that just broke. I hate it. I want to stop for just a second and say that if you take a little bit of money from every job that you earn and you put it inside an emergency fund, if you find yourself calling a plumber at someone else's house, they're going to want to guarantee that they're going to get paid. So you have to give them a credit card up front and you have to be able to pay that right now. They need money right now. It can possibly be reimbursed with the homeowner's insurance at a later date, and they may cut you a check back. But right now you need to have the money to get them out right now. I can't wait to go home and figure out the books and do we have money to pay a plumber and all those things. We don't have the luxury of that right now. There better be an emergency fund. And we got the plumber out here immediately. He wanted to be paid cash on the spot, which is completely reasonable. We're not the homeowners. We don't live here. It's possible he would never see us again and never get paid, right? So you got to pay him on the spot. The mitigator came out and they're the ones that file the insurance claim. And so they filed an insurance claim based on all of the assessment that they did. So they went through and they checked all of the areas of the home. They checked for humidity, they checked for water damage, and then they went ahead and brought in a bunch of equipment to start drying out the areas. So underneath the cabinets here, there was a bunch of water that had seeped in underneath the baseboards. So they took the baseboards off and you can still see the water line. So they drilled holes, and that's where these yellow pipes are coming from. They drilled holes, and this machine pumps air through all these different areas underneath the kitchen. And it comes through a great big machine that's a great big dehumidifier like this, and it wraps around on these what look like little IV tubes that they've taped to the cupboard that go into the sink. So they had to pull out the stove, and they've got a unit here behind the stove that's drying out the walls. So in this room, this is the living room, they have an air scrubber, and that is HEPA filtration. And that blows air out and sucks in, I don't know, gunk or smell or whatever to keep the room from building up mold. They have another dehumidifier here that goes into the living room. And this goes up to one of those IV-like tubes that goes over to the kitchen sink. And over here they have an air fan, but the technician squeezed out this carpet like it was a sponge and water just came running out. Anyway, they took off the baseboards here and then they sprayed an antibacterial on the sides of the baseboards on the edge of the carpet so that mold did not build up. And then they've been running this fan for the last 48 hours because we're still here a couple days later. They've been running that so that the carpets will dry out and we don't have to replace the carpets. So they were very quick to minimize as much of the damage as possible. And the goal for what happened here is to prevent the damage so that we're not paying extra repair costs. But that's just the immediacy of it was the important thing to pay attention to. So I hate that I find myself in this situation, but if you find yourself in a similar situation, the very first thing you want to do is cut off the water at the water meter or the water valve out at the front of the house, wherever it is. You got to call and find out where that is so that you can cut that off. The second thing that you have to do is pull up the water as quickly as possible. For us, that was mopping. Step number 3 is you want to figure out where the leak is coming from. We went underneath the kitchen sink, pulled everything out when we discovered it wasn't a leak at all that we could see. Step number 4 is to call a plumber. This is, okay, this is out of my scope. I can't fix this myself. I need help, and do it immediately. Step number 5, make sure that you have an emergency fund so that you are able to write the check to the plumber because he wants to be paid on the spot. Step number 6, you want to get a mitigator to come out and do an assessment of the water damage to prevent mold and what have you. And if they have equipment, they will bring it in immediately. They will get you started and fixed up so that you don't have mold later on. One of the things I learned on that call when the mitigator arrived is if you do not file an insurance claim within 14 days, it's considered neglect. It is not covered by the homeowner's insurance. I know, I didn't know. So we filed an insurance claim immediately. Somewhere between steps 1 and 7, you got to get the homeowner involved if you are at a customer's house and this is not your home. You got to get them involved. You got to let them know. We'll work out the details later. We're completely responsible, and then go into action mode and get this taken care of immediately. All right, so this is where we are right now. We've got an insurance adjuster coming in about 45 minutes that's going to take a look around and make sure that we didn't forget anything, or that all of the reports that the mitigator and the plumber have put in are in alignment with the insurance claim that they're filing. So those are the steps. Again, I hate that this happened. I'm super embarrassed. I just thought that this was a perfect opportunity to share with you. If you ever find yourself in a similar situation, this is what you do. Now, if you are worried about mold, and I know many of us are, I'm talking about shower mold that's inside your showers, that we can remove ourselves. This kind of mold, if this got into the house and stuff, out of our control. But if you're worried about shower mold, there's another video right here that I prepared for you. Check that out next. Until we meet again, leave the world a cleaner place than when you found it.